A recurring motif in the series is the idea of bloodlust as an addiction. There is no cure, your addictions stay with you. You have to be able to keep the willpower to stay strong. Nick's way to mortality isn't just a physical transition, but a mental one too, to become more human. And becoming human isn't becoming pure. Humans are flawed and, at times, evil. So when Nick falls off the wagon, Natalie is the one who brings him back. Natalie's made it her mission to help Nick in his quest to become mortal, using her knowledge of forensic pathology and other vaguely described medical stuff. The science is a little wonky, so sometimes I question her methods. She keeps getting him to eat stuff like that will turn him human somehow, telling him to stop drinking blood. So he's supposed to just die of starvation? I don't know, man. That's sort of like saying, have you ever tried not being a vampire?
Drink it. It's all in your mind.
I really don't think it is, but sometimes it works. At times, it seems like there's progress, like when Nick is shot and doesn't heal as quickly, or they mention he's actually feeling pain, because he didn't feel pain before, but most of the time it goes unmentioned, which really hurts the premise. It doesn't seem like anything is actually being done, so it never seems like it's that important, except when the plot needs it. You barely see Nick attempting any of these things. In fact, he seems to think the whole thing is stupid. Most of the time when it's mentioned, it's because Natalie is scolding him for not doing it. I realize he needs to be a vampire or you have no show, but there had to be a better way to go about this. In fact, if I had to pinpoint the biggest negative for the show, it's the lack of continuity. Almost every episode stands alone and can be watched in any order. I can't blame anyone behind the scenes for this, as it was common practice at the time to make it easier for new viewers, but the result is that characters can't really move forward at all. If something really emotional or life-changing happens, it's not going to bleed over into any other episode. This is especially true for Nick and Natalie's relationship, which seems to take small steps and then get ignored. The most egregious lack of emotional continuity, however, lies in the shockingly specific kill Natalie's friends and family theme. A commonly cheap ploy in TV is to suddenly introduce an old friend or family member in an episode, only to immediately kill them off, in an attempt to make the death more meaningful. But for some reason, they just keep doing it to Natalie, and then never acknowledge it again. This happens at least once a season. The first time this happens is the most important, I think, but also the biggest missed opportunity. Natalie's brother is shot in a police standoff. He's going to die, and Natalie begs Nick to turn him into a vampire. There's no justice in his death, no meaning. And if Nick can control himself, if she can help him, why can't she do the same for her brother? But Nick knows how difficult it is to stop himself, how hard it will be for her brother.
I have never asked you for anything but this. Don't you have any humanity?
I don't know. You're the only one who ever thought I did.
Natalie has helped him. He doesn't want to see her in pain. And he can save her brother, but the question is whether or not that's really rescue. Is the price worth his soul? Nick is racked with guilt and finally does turn him. He attempts to teach him how to control himself, how to live a good life, but soon he's out killing people and exacting revenge for his death. He isn't the person he was, and so Nick has to kill him. Natalie has to accept death, even when immortality is within her grasp, even when it isn't fair. But the story here is also about taking responsibility for your creations. Nick isn't innocent in all of this. But none of this is touched on again, and the next time we see Natalie, it's back to normal. You wouldn't even know she had a brother if you never saw the episode. I would have liked to see more fallout from that, especially concerning Natalie's guilt. It doesn't feel closed, just left out in the ether. It takes the series a little bit to show us how Nick and Natalie met, as they already know each other when the series begins. 2 years prior, Nick was trying to stop a robbery, and for his troubles he suffered a case of blown the hell up. He ends up at Natalie's morgue, where she discovers what he really is. The episode is really weird, though. They both act all ominous and overdramatic for no particular reason. They don't act like this normally, so they both sound slightly off.
Evil is a metaphysical condition.
You're not evil. You ended up on my examining table because you tried to help people. Also, your condition is a physical one.
I see.
Nick tries to hypnotize her to make her forget, but it doesn't work. Some people can resist it. She wants to help him, to understand and solve a puzzle, but Nick warns her not to get too close.
You want to hurt me? kill me.
No. But I might anyway.
This pretty much sums up their relationship. Nick doesn't act on his feelings toward Natalie to protect her.
Last night I realized something.
What?
But if I'm not careful, I'll get in the way of you and your happiness.
That's the tragic part of their relationship. The reason they can't be together is because they care so deeply for each other. Forever Night features lots of flashbacks to Nick's past, some of them fascinating, some of them snoozeville. One thing's for sure, he's gonna have some really terrible wigs. These flashbacks cover 800 years or so we get to see many different times and places. The show really does a great job of creating a wide span of settings. Though sometimes it seems like Nick is kind of crazy and zones out in the middle of talking to someone to reminisce. His current life is temporary, all of his lives are. An eternity is a long time. One of the earliest examples of showing the downside to immortality in the show is an episode called Last Act. A vampire from Nick's past promised him that if she ever stopped enjoying life, ever stopped contributing to life to make up for those she's taken, she'd end it. And so when the episode begins, we find her waiting for the sunrise on a park bench, and she dies. Is it really a gift to live forever? Would you really want all of eternity? Could you stay happy? More importantly, do you deserve it? This was also a way to talk about suicide and depression, how it can be a confusing and sometimes mysterious thing, paralleled by Nick's case. Someone who seems so happy can be completely different behind closed doors, or change from the person you knew.
Is it because they have a soul?
And you do not.
We do not.
It shouldn't be a surprise that vampires fear death. They chose to live forever. When vampires are turned, they have a choice: go to the light or return to the darkness and be lost. Nick's soul is tainted. He must right his wrongs to truly be saved, if that's even possible. Because if he becomes human, he's allowing himself to die, and all of his work is for a maybe. He doesn't know what's on the other side. He simply has to have faith. Before Nick was a vampire, he was exactly that, a man of faith. He was fighting in the Crusades, and he fell in love with a woman. She believed in magic in the heart of her people, and the men of the church eventually killed her. The church was lies and hypocrisy. How then can this be a loving God? And so Nick was led down the path to his fate.
And we ask ourselves, if there is a God, how can this happen? Better to ask, if there is a God.
The first vampire Nick ever met was Jeanette, his centuries-long, on-again, off-again romantic interest. It's less of a girlfriend-boyfriend thing, and more of a shared connection that comes from 800 years of being together. Nick goes to her to fulfill his vampiric needs, something Natalie can't offer. Nick can reveal his dark desires to Jeanette. She's the one person he can be completely open with. Jeanette is very French and very blasé. She runs a vampire nightclub called The Raven, did it before True Blood, and dispenses sass.
Something that can pick up a 220-pound man, shake him like a puppy, and tear him to shreds. Are you trying to entertain me?
While Jeanette isn't a bad guy, she's not exactly good either. She's of the traditional vampire mindset. Humans are quite tasty, but unfortunately off limits due to the whole exposure issue. But because people matter to Nick, she's willing to help out sometimes. She even protects Skanky on more than one hilarious occasion. She has surprisingly little screen time with Natalie though, considering the nature of their relationships to Nick. Here's their first meeting.
It's a pleasure to meet you, Natalie. Nick has spoken of you. Often.
We'll have to get together.
And awkwardly fade to credits. Initially, Jeanette doesn't support Nick's obsession with becoming human, because she's quite happy being what she is. It helps to know some of Jeanette's history. She uses the Raven as a refuge for prostitutes because that was her human profession. She was abused, looked down upon, and left to fend for herself, even by the church. She's protective of these girls because she sees herself in them.
Trapped in a world of darkness, with no way out. No escape from the hold of the master over her. Yes, you've had a taste of it, but you have no idea what it is like to have every man believe that he owns you.
When one of the girls is killed and another is in danger, Jeanette wants to turn her into a vampire to save her, until it turns out the girl was the killer all along. Jeanette wanted to help her start over, save her like she was saved. And that's the turning point for Jeanette, where she understands Nick's want to begin again. When the world had abandoned her, becoming a vampire was her salvation. So let's talk about Lacroix. Oh, hello. As mentioned earlier, Lacroix was Nick's sire, as well as Jeanette's. He's played by Nigel Bennett, who was previously most known for his oatmeal crisp commercials.
Oatmeal crisp? You can't whack it. Meaning? I like it. But it's not oatmeal!
Apparently, he loved the Lacroix role so much, he wrote a series of novels based around the character, though unofficially. You're probably wondering why I'm still talking about Lacroix, because you might also recall me mentioning that by the end of both pilots, he was pretty definitively dead as shit. Well, that's just fine, because with flashbacks, you don't need a character to be alive to keep them on board. Except, yeah, he's totally still alive for some reason.
You didn't actually believe that you killed me, did you? I'm much too old and powerful for that.
I hope that's a satisfactory enough explanation for you, because that's all they ever give us. I don't know. So once they throw this whammy at us at the end of Season 1, Lacroix is back in the present to scheme again and keep Nick under his thumb, but mostly to give many elaborate speeches.
Blink, and they'll all be ghosts. Blink, and they'll all be gone. Lucky boy. Lucky girl. Unburden your conscience. Be rid of your sins. Call me now. How do you feel about the moon? About how it translates the light of the sun? You see, Nicholas, the best form of government is a benevolent tyranny tempered by the occasional assassination.
There is nothing he won't speech about. In fact, he's so in love with giving speeches that he runs a metal station as the Nightcrawler for the sole purpose of sending speeches to Nick in the middle of sets. Yeah, really metal, guys.
Because I'm the Nightcrawler. And I love you all.
This is one weird radio station, man. Eventually, it just turns into a talk show where he waxes philosophical and tells viewers all about his buddy who won't talk to him. So Lacroix wants Nick to stay a vampire. He's been stopping his mortal schemes for forever now. But he never really gives Nick any reason to want to stay a vampire. He keeps going on about Nick needing to trust him and whatever, but I don't know, man. All of that killing people he knows and loves has probably put a damper on all that. Once the scheming dies down, Nick just sort of tolerates Lacroix's presence as he annoys him with lessons. Eventually, like Jeanette, Nick starts asking him for help. Wait, why does Nick keep an autographed copy of Lacroix's headshot in his desk? Why does Lacroix have a headshot? Nick doesn't entirely want him gone, seeking him for answers, and even becoming upset when he believes him dead. This was after his resurrection from Nick's previous murder of him. Sure, they've tried to kill each other on more than one occasion, but what vampires haven't? It doesn't exactly cancel out 800 years of history. If you turn someone into a vampire, your lives are intertwined forever. And not even Lacroix is black and white. While he's certainly on the evil side, they've shown that he has a sense of justice and was even inspired by Nick's righteousness in the past. The two of them have a surprisingly complex relationship, which is why no one actually gave a shit that Lacroix's resurrection made no sense in any way, shape, or form. The show didn't really start going until he came back. Nick and Lacroix's dynamic can best be described as a father-son relationship, or a teacher and a student. In the past, Lacroix deliberately withheld information from Nick to keep him under control, and also cover plot holes for things Nick should probably know after 8 centuries. It was his desperation to keep his hold on Nick that sent Nick on his current path. But this grudge isn't just about Lacroix's want of control. It personally hurts his feelings. This is a rejection of Lacroix's gift, disowning him as his creator. But like a father and child, you have to be able to let them go.
You're my creature, Nicholas. Made in my image.
Then I am a monster.
Why are you doing this to me?
I've done nothing to you, Lacroix. You did this.
On the other hand, Lacroix acts more like a jealous boyfriend than anything. If I can't have him, no one will.
We can get a new one.
I don't want a new one. I like that one.
It's actually kind of a love story, an unrequited love, something that goes beyond student and teacher. He just wants Nick to love him back, as you will gather from his many speeches about love. I think the best example to support this theory is Be My Valentine, which explores Nick and Natalie's relationship. When their feelings finally come to the forefront, Lacroix wants to keep them apart, because his love for Natalie brings him closer to being human. Throughout the whole thing, Lacroix keeps going on about love not existing and just say no to love, but it seems like every other show, all he does is go on about how he loves everyone. A flashback reveals that Lacroix fell in love with Nick's sister, attracted to her purity. She was everything Lacroix is not. Lacroix wants to make her a vampire, but Nick rightly tells him that he can make her live forever, but by making her immortal, he can never preserve her light, the part of her he loves. I think in some ways it's the same for Nick. His purity, or search for it, might be what draws Lacroix to him, why he won't let him go. He's drawn to it but repulsed by it, because it's something he can never have. For Natalie, it's the opposite. She's drawn to the darkness in Nick, to the unknown.
They say if you love someone, let them go. If they're really yours, they will learn their lessons and return. You will come back, Nicholas. I can wait.
We do get a glimpse of Lacroix's origins. Before he was a vampire, he was a general in Pompeii. He was cruel and corrupt even when he was human, but he did care about his daughter Divya. When she fell ill, she was turned into a vampire, so when Mount Vesuvius erupts, she gives him a choice: live or die. Lacroix can't accept defeat and takes her offer. Divya is his daughter, but also his mother. She created him, but also damned him. There's a lot of weird incestual relationships going on with this guy.
And we're truly eternal.
Yes. Father.
You were right, Divya. Damn you for it.
I think what I liked the most about Lacroix was that he wasn't a mwahaha villain, and he didn't just use violence to get his way. Lacroix's power lies in his ability to manipulate. He doesn't need to kill people. For example, when Skanky almost finds out about Nick's secret and he starts investigating all of the weird things that keep happening, he ends up going to Lacroix for answers. At one point, he straight up asks if he and Nick are vampires. This is such a great scene. Skanky is nothing to Lacroix. He could easily kill him. But he doesn't. He just talks. He doesn't patronize, confirm, or deny. He simply discusses and lets Skanky come to his own conclusions, what he really wants to believe. In the end, Skanky realizes he would have been dead if it weren't for Nick. It doesn't matter whether or not he's a vampire.
Detective, you asked me if Nicholas is different. Au contraire. The Nicholas that I know is very much like you. He doesn't like to kill people, either.